Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on 7 tips to ensure your presentations are not boring. We've all seen death by PowerPoint. We've all seen people who prattle on. They give information that's not relevant. They seem to wander everywhere. They give scattergun approach. So what can you do to make sure that the next time you do a presentation that you are not boring? In fact, you're the opposite. You're engaging and you connect with the audience. You keep the audience on the edge of the seat. You'll keep the audience interested in what you've got to say. So let's get started. As you know, ask questions as we go, type in your comments. You've got the dialog box and I'll address those questions as we go. You also know I'll make a recording available, so if anyone wants to review the video, if I move too fast, you've got access to the recording to utilize in your own time. Let's get started. There are no boring topics, only boring presenters. So even the most mundane and uninteresting of topics can be made exciting and engaging if you use the right tools. And the classic one that I like to refer people to is a TED Talk by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Hans Rosling. H-A-N-S is his first name, Hans, and then Rosling, R-O-S-L-I-N-G, the best damn statistics that you'll ever see. Just put that into the TED Talk, Hans Rosling, best statistics you'll ever see. He talks about death rates, he talks about birth rates, how they've changed over the last 50 years across the planet. Generally quite a boring topic, but this Dr. Hans Rosling brings his presentation to life. It is not boring by any means. So 7 tips. I'll move through them fairly quickly and you can read those for yourself. Don't read from the script, don't read from your PowerPoint, involve the audience, be passionate, use stories, use appropriate and congruent body language, and put the audience at the center. Show your audience that you care. I'm going to go through these one by one. So the first one is don't read from a script. If you don't want to be boring, if you don't want to put your audience to sleep, then one of the worst things you can do is to read word from a script. I see this sometimes at weddings, and I sometimes see politicians read speeches out word for word. And you can tell when they're reading it, and they're just not present. Their eye contact is not available to connect with the audience, to check in with the audience. Your peripheral vision helps you to see the energy in the room when someone disagrees with you. If people are falling asleep, if they're rolling their eyes because they don't agree with you, that shaking of the head from side to side of disagreement, how can you perceive all of this from your audience if you're reading from a script? And the worst thing is when you lose your track of where you are in your script, and then you have to recover, or you repeat, or you miss a line. The other one with reading from a script is when you have palm cards and you see people drop their palm cards and all of a sudden they're lost because they haven't taken the time to learn how to effectively present without reading from a script. One of the ways to do this is you can use a mind map. You can have 3 or 4 points in a mind map, and off that 3 or 4 points you can have another 2 or 3 points. So it might be point 1, 1A, point 1, 1B, then point 2. Use the mind map. Use a 1-page outline. So these could be bullet points on the page that as soon as you read that one word, that gives you 5 to 10 minutes worth of content to talk about. And use your headings and your bullet points. So rather than read from a script, come up with another way. And I have done a webinar on presenting without notes. Come up with another way of remembering your content. It's not about being word perfect, but it's about not reading word for word, being fully present to attend to your audience's needs, attending to your audience's nonverbal communications, reading what's happening in the room, and you as the speaker being able to respond, take a break, ask a question, and take a step back. If you want to engage the audience, don't read word for word from a script. Tip number 2, don't read word from your PowerPoint. This is death by PowerPoint. We know what PowerPoint's for. It's an audio visual aid. Don't read from your PowerPoint slides. Don't do bullet points. It is not your teleprompter. It is not your script. Bullet points is shooting your audience to death one bullet at a time. The PowerPoint slide is for the audience, not for you. I've just done death by PowerPoint. I do apologize. That is a sure way of not engaging your audience. That is a sure way of putting your audience to sleep. So what do you use PowerPoint for? PowerPoint's better to be used for your images. Put up some pictures, put up some graphs, put up some models, some triangles, some links, and then the image, the photograph, is all you need to talk about your next point. So if I was to demonstrate to you, for example, and I put up this slide and I'd talk about closed nonverbal communication. And when you close your arms like that as a speaker, you're seen as being a little bit closed, a little bit aggressive, not open to others people's ideas. So when you do stand up, what is the correct way to stand? And then I'll talk about all the appropriate stances. I'll talk about aggressive stances. I'll talk about passive stances. And I've got 5 minutes to 10 minutes worth of content just by that one PowerPoint slide. Now you may want to talk about your return on investment, the trends, how the last quarter's been. And this is the PowerPoint slide you show, and this is all the data you need. As you can see from last year, we had a downturn in this month, and this year everything's going really well. Now, what do I think is the reason for this year going so well? And you list your 3 or 4 points. You don't need to read from your PowerPoint slides. Rather, the PowerPoint is an audio-visual aid, to enhance what you're saying, not to replace what you're saying. So please, don't read word for word from your PowerPoint slides. That does not engage your audience, and that will put your audience to sleep. The third tip, involve your audience. Ask them to do something. Get them thinking. Get them to turn to the person next to each other. Have a chat to the person next to you. Let them know 2 things you've learned so far in this webinar. Does anyone have any questions? Quick show of hands, who would agree with this? I've put 2 signs on the room. Your nonverbal communication is irrelevant if you have a very good written presentation. If you believe in that, move to the right side. If you disagree with that, move to the left side. As I do a nonverbal poll during my presentation, involve the audience in some activity. And I love this particular model that Matt Church uses. And he runs this about every 10 minutes. So about every 10 to 15 minutes, kind of make sure you've been through this cycle. Tell people stuff. So you need to talk to them. Some people are audio learners. They learn from hearing what you've got to say. Some people need visual aids. Show them the PowerPoint slides. Walk to a flip chart. Then ask them to internalize. How can you use this information? What does this mean for your next presentation? What are you going to do to make sure your next presentation is not boring, that you don't do death by PowerPoint? Share with the person next to you. 2 things you've learnt from me and get the 2 things they've learnt from you. Or would anyone in the room like to share back their thoughts with the room? So that share can be with the person next to you, or that share can be back to the whole room. Tell, show and ask resets your concentration clock. It helps keeping the audience engaged. It helps them think and apply the knowledge that you're giving them so that you keep them awake. So it's not just you talking to them or showing them PowerPoint slides, it's getting them involved. Be passionate and excited about your topic. Be passionate and excited about your topic. Without passion, people are probably not going to buy your message. Let me just get that slide back. Without passion, people won't buy your message. Without passion, people won't believe that you believe in what you're saying. So when you watch that Hans Rosling TED Talk on death rates and birth rates, you'll see that this gentleman is really passionate about his topic. I'm very passionate about helping people become more confident in their public speaking, become more effective public speakers, and people see that when I walk on stage. And Steve Jobs says, what makes your heart sing? Tap into that, find that confidence as you engage your audience. So how do you generate passion? And I use this little acronym called Communicate with Care. So this is another way you can present without notes. You can use an acronym. So conviction means, do you believe in your own message? Have you got that inbuilt belief, that conviction? They say the first sale, so you're selling a message, you're selling an idea, the first sale must be to yourself. If you're talking about change management, if you're talking about a new policy, a new way of doing things, an extra layer of bureaucracy, why do you believe that this is necessary? Why do you believe it's the right thing to do? Without that passion and that conviction, people are not going to believe your message. Our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, has some difficulties with his conviction in some areas of which he speaks. He is known to be pro-republic. He wants to leave the monarchy and he wants to be a republic. He's also known to be pro-carbon tax. They were 2 policies he endorsed and promoted before he became Prime Minister. The Liberal Party's policy is to stay in the monarchy and to have no carbon tax. So when he's speaking about those topics, it's clear that he's not aligned. The next thing is your attitude. Most times when we speak, we have a choice. We can just be there and go through the motions, or we can want to be there. That attitude is, I want to be here. There's nowhere else in the world that I'd rather be today than speaking to you guys on this webinar. It's called the 1%ers. What are you going to do, that extra 1%, to let the audience know that you matter, that they matter to you? Responsibility. Many of you will know that public speaking will change people's lives. You'll provide them with solutions. You'll provide them with hope. You'll provide them with light at the end of the tunnel. If you're working in the area of aged care or disability or not-for-profit or health and safety, speaking at a pre-start meeting at Rio Tinto or BHP or Chevron and highlighting a risk that's only come to light, and that very day saving someone's life because they took that extra step. And the energy level. It's just having the right level energy. let's say this is your audience's energy level. The right thing for you to do is to be just a smidgen higher. So you need to have the right energy level, but just a bit higher than the room. So this is the room energy. The average energy of the room. Is it excited? Is it dull, boring? I don't want to be here. The mistake people make is they come in too high or they come in too low. And the attitude is, I don't want to be here. I'm going to go through this motion. Here's the safety lecture I'm going to give you. I don't care whether you go out there and hurt yourself or not. I'm running this safety lecture. This complies with the legislation. I've ticked the box. You've been trained. Off you go. I don't care what you do. And that energy, you're seen as really flat. The other one is you come in too high, and we can call this the evangelical preacher. You jump up and down, you rah, 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 evangelical, I cannot spell. And in doing that, you lose the audience because they're not at that energy level yet. So make sure you match the energy level of the room. That's the rule for working out, picking your energy. So there's my acronym for finding passion. Have conviction, self-belief, have the right attitude, the 1%er, understand your responsibility, your privilege of being before that audience, and match your energy level to that in the room. I'm going to pause for a moment. Are there any questions? So presenting without notes scares some people. Yes, I understand if you don't present a lot and you're presenting something new, then you will want to have notes up there with you. But also understand that when you read from your notes, you're not going to engage the audience. When you read from your notes, you are likely to be perceived as boring and possibly perceived as underprepared. So I like to have my notes. So let's describe it this way. So for presenting without notes, I will have my full script, and there might be, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages for my full script. And I'll have all of that there. I'll have that on the lectern. I'll do as much preparation as I can. And from that full script, I will have prepared a mind map. Now, a mind map is something like a core message, point 1, point 2, point 3, 1 anecdote, 2 anecdotes, 3 anecdotes, 1 case study, 2 case studies, 3 case studies for each point. I'm going to know my opening and I'm going to know my conclusion, and I have that mind map with me. Other people like to have bullet points. So they have the heading, and then they have bullet point 1, bullet point 2, bullet point 3, second heading, bullet points, bullet points, bullet points, third heading, so forth. When you get lost or you lose your way, then you can go back and pick up the script, the full script. Maybe you have a quotation that you can't remember. Maybe you have some complicated statistics that you need to read. So then you go from your mind map and you go back to your notes and read for 1 or 2 minutes till you get over that complex bit, then go back to your mind map and speak mostly without referring to your mind map or your notes. So that's what I mean by presenting without notes. And I know it's scary, but you'll be surprised how well you can do when you practice and you get used to it. Tip number 5, which kind of links with presenting without notes, is tell stories to engage the audience. I remember I drew the mind map, and off point 1, there was 1, 2, 3 case studies. Those case studies can be stories. The time you worked with family X, and give that story a name, the Jones family. When I'm overcoming fear, I talk about Ringo Starr and his nickname, Pukey in the Sky with Diamonds. Ringo Starr has a fear of performance and he often vomits. So by having those stories, I can talk for 5 to 10 minutes to that content without the need to refer to my notes. And while I'm telling that story, I'm fully present to engage the audience, to use my eye contact, to read whether the audience is with me or against me, falling asleep, whether they're wide awake. Do I need to go to tell, show, ask, share? Do I need to get them on the feet to do something? Because I'm just telling a story that I know. If you're going to use stories, this is the story model. Tell a story and make a point. If you tell a story and there's no point, then you must be a stand-up comedian. Tell a story, make a point, and make sure the point has a benefit or is of value to the people in the room. Yeah, if there's no benefit or if there's no value, then why are you telling me that story? So that's the model for storytelling. Tell a story, make a point, highlight the benefit or the value. You know that people buy on benefits, not so much on features. A classic example of that is the Steve Jobs and the iPod, and the Bill Gates and the MP3 player. The MP3 player came before the iPod, and this is how Bill Gates, when he launched the Microsoft MP3 player, this is how Bill Gates described to the people of the world the MP3 player. It has 250 gigabytes of memory. It holds 2,000 songs, and it will play continuously for 6 hours. That's the features of the MP3 player. Steve Jobs then launched the iPod, just another MP3 player, and this is how Steve Jobs went to the world about the iPod. This little device is going to put your whole music library in your pocket. Your whole music library in your pocket. See how one's the features, 250 megabyte, 6 hours battery life, 2,000 songs. They're all the features. Make sure you highlight the benefit of the point you're making to the people in the room. That'll engage people. Telling stories engages people. There's a saying within public speaking, people won't remember much of what you've said, but we will remember how you make us feel. And it's the stories that transport us on that emotional journey, those stories of hope, of success, those stories of light at the end of the tunnel. Number 6, your body language. Let me ask you a question. Are you aware of what your nonverbal communication says about you? And here's a warning. Where the words that you say, and it could be you're reading them from a script, where the words and your body language or your nonverbal communication where they're not equal, the body language trumps the words you say. So you need congruent body language. We spoke about passion. There's no point standing there and saying, I'm really passionate about this with a flat voice and with hands in your pocket and with no gestures. At the same token, asking everybody to remain calm as you jump up and down and you run around like a chook with its head chopped off, flapping your hands around, please everybody stay calm. Clearly, people are going to see that you don't believe your own words. So really important that you are aware of what your body language is saying and that you walk the talk. There's that congruence. of your action, your nonverbal communication. If you want to engage the audience, you need to give them the whole package. If you don't want them to fall to sleep, make sure that your nonverbals and your body language aligns perfectly with what you're saying. So do you know what your body says about you? Have you ever asked anyone? It's worthwhile finding out. There's some photos of me. This one as a speaker is seen and described as the fig leaf. This is generally a no and a no-no. This is passive. This is I don't want to be here. This one, hands on hips, is also a no-no. It's seen as aggressive and not really open to feedback, as is this one. Now, if you're an audience member and you see people sitting in your audience with their arms like that, doesn't mean they're closed. It's just very comfortable. As a speaker, you will be perceived as closed. So as a speaker, don't put your arms like that, especially if you're asking people, please, I want you to come on a journey with me. Please open up your minds as we explore a new way of doing business as you have your arms closed. Behind your back, especially if you're walking across the platform, is called the Sergeant Major. Once again, an aggressive. This one's pushing back. So if I say, I want you to come on a journey with me as you push back, and I remember Julia Gillard used this gesture during one of the election campaigns, and the slogan she was saying was moving forward as she pushed back, moving forward. If I was talking to you about moving forward, I'd have my palms up and I would pull my hands towards me as I'd say, come on a journey with me. Let's move forward. Are you aware of your nonverbal communication? Have you done an audit? Have you had feedback? Find out what your nonverbals say. Some nonverbals can be so bad that the Shire of Melville has to put in a code of conduct. You understand? This is a written code of conduct, and as an elected local council, if you breach the code, there are penalties. So some things you must not do. No sighing, no finger pointing, no turning your back on someone when they're speaking, no standing over, no rolling your eyes, no slamming your fists on the door. This is a code of conduct that has been written and articulated. It's a few years ago because the councillors were behaving badly. This is your nonverbal communication. It's also very childlike. And number 7, if you want to engage your audience, if you want to not put them to sleep, make sure that you put the audience first. Show them that you care. And to do that, tell me what's in it for me. If I'm sitting in listening to you, what's in it for me? What are you going to give me? Show the audience that it's about them and it's not about you. It is not about you. It is all about the audience. Yeah, that's what we want, all about the audience. Then I'm interested. Then I'm going to stay engaged and I'm not going to fall asleep because you're going to solve a problem for me. So how do you make it all about the audience? Solve their problem. Remove their pain, help them achieve their goals, help me reach my key performance indicators. One of the ways I describe this to people is every time you speak, ask yourself, what headache are you the paracetamol for in that room? What is the headache that those people in the room have that your message poses the solution, puts forward the way forward? And if you do that, the audience is going to love you. So in summarizing, don't read from your script. Don't, even worse, read from your PowerPoint slides. That is death by PowerPoint. Do involve the audience, ask them questions, ask them to share, ask them to think. Let that passion come through. One of the ways of using passion is to share stories. One of the ways of speaking without notes is to share your stories. Part of your passion needs to be in your body language, so make sure your body language is congruent, and make the whole presentation about the audience. Put the audience first at the center, solve their problems, and they're going to love you. Some upcoming workshops. We've got workshops in Brisbane in early August, lots of workshops in Perth in August. We've got Katanning in September. We've got Brisbane coming up in August. We've got Broome in October. Lots of workshops. Those of you who are webinar junkies, so I said don't do death by PowerPoint. So how should you use PowerPoint? 7th of August, 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., back to the normal time. Tips for you to use your PowerPoint effectively. Finally, the second webinar for August, how to use your voice and speak like a professional speaker. How do you use your voice and sound like a professional speaker? 28th of August. You know how to reach me. You've got my email. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and I look forward to speaking to you sometime in the future at a webinar or a workshop. Remember, don't put your audience to sleep. If you use the 7 strategies we've just discussed, you'll be an engaging and exciting speaker, and no one will want to fall asleep.